Okay, well, I think we will go ahead and kick things off. I'm so excited to be here today. Welcome, everyone. I am Ginger Bandeen, the founder and CEO of Mission Driven Data. I'm joined today by the wonderful Dr. Carrie Graham, who will be sharing her amazing knowledge and wisdom with us about adult learners. If you've seen some of the information I've been posting about why we're hosting someone to talk about adult learning, you'll know that I think it's one of the key things to us in our work. We don't always think of ourselves as designing training and education, but we are communicating information and we are trying to make that information meaningful to folks. And I think there's such a big intersection there with how do adult learners think and how can we design things and produce things and communicate in a way that has an impact, because that's what most folks who work with data are trying to do. So if you're just joining us, please hop over to the chat, let us know who you are and where you're joining us from. That would be great. And we'll go ahead and get started. I think I have a slide here about housekeeping that is always important, or else I forget to say the things about housekeeping. So I'm Ginger Bandeen. I did say that, so points for me. For remembering to say who I am. But I am here in Portland, Oregon. It's the sun is coming out and it's a really nice day here. So a couple housekeeping things. We are recording today's session. So if you miss anything or if you're trying to furiously take notes, don't stress out. You'll get a copy of the recording as soon as we have that edited. It'll be available to folks who registered through Zoom for at least a week. If you want to have further access to that, we keep long-term access to those recordings in our mission-driven data community. And we always like for folks to go to the chat and let us know where you're joining us from. So if you just joined us, please do that. A quick thing about the mission-driven data community. We're a group of folks from all over the country who are interested in learning about how to use data to improve the mental health system. We have lots of activities in there. We have events like this with guest speakers. We also do co-working sessions. We have monthly trainings. It's hosted on Mighty Networks and it's free to join. And Erica is great about posting a link in the chat. If you would like to join the community and you haven't already, please feel free to do that. We would love to have you in there. So, and also, yeah, hi, Anne is here also from Prince William Community Services. Great to see you, Anne. So, okay, and just a quick thing to let everybody know that upcoming events in the Mission Driven Data community in April, our theme is exploring anomalies. So we're going to be talking about different ways to explore things that you see in your data that maybe come out and seem like something important to look into and how you can do that. We're going to have another guest speaker next month. It'll be Cheryl Ramirez, who's the executive director of the Association of Oregon Community Mental Health Programs. So she's going to be talking about that. And yeah, we also have some other things going on in the community with the state of single payer with Colin, lots of fun things. Okay, so again, you're welcome to join the community. I think Erica will post something in the chat with a link to join. And without further ado, we will kick off our discussion with Dr. Graham. So hang on one second. I'm going to stop sharing my slides. I'm going to remember how to do this. It's going to be good. Here we go. Stop sharing.
You got it.
Yeah. So Dr. Graham, I wanted to do a little bit more of an introduction first, if that's okay, because I want to brag about how amazing you are. I couldn't remember, Dr. Graham, I feel like we've known each other maybe almost 2 years now.
I think so. I think it has been about 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah, so Dr. Graham and I know each other through a network of I would call it like business owners, like people who are entrepreneurs who have their own businesses. That's how Dr. Graham and I first got to know each other. We've been connected through this last couple of years of pandemic amazingness in the world. Both of us growing businesses during this time. And Dr. Graham is the founder and owner of Carrie O. Graham Learning and Solutions, which helps small business owners and corporate trainers build learning experiences with adult learning best practices to meet key performance indicators. Dr. Graham is an author and researcher with 25 plus years experience in curriculum development and learning facilitation across healthcare, higher education, and management. She has presented at national and international professional conferences. Dr. Graham has a reputation of asking critical questions that help people uncover clear and insightful solutions. As a consultant, she demonstrates adult learning best practices when customizing experiences with her clients. And Dr. Graham doesn't believe in a one-size-fits-all approach. She customizes solutions to support individual and organizational needs. I always think of Dr. Graham as being amazing, first of all, because she's Dr. Graham. And so Dr. Graham has like smart knowledge of all kinds of amazing things, and is literally an expert on this field. And so I'm so grateful that you decided to join us. Is there anything I missed in your intro, Dr. Graham, that you would like to mention?
No, that's a lot. And it's a lot. And honestly, of all those things that you listed, the thing that I would say that I'm the most proud of is helping people understand, right? So like the publications, the research, the scholarship, the business ownership are great and they're blessings, but to be able to help, you know, whoever, to help people understand in a way that actually makes sense for them so that they can use it, that's what I'm most proud of. So I know you didn't ask, but I just throw that out there. I'm really proud to hear that one being said.
Aw, yeah, I think that's very true. And I can see why that would be something you would be proud of for sure. So, I think we've talked, Dr. Graham and I have kind of exchanged some information about the kind of folks who would be coming to today's session and how you all are sometimes involved in designing trainings, in like setting things up so that people know how to do their jobs better. And that we often run into situations where we find out something's going wrong with training because folks that work in the data side of things see like, oh gosh, the data is kind of a mess. And maybe folks who got that training didn't really understand the training and didn't really absorb the information. And I'd be interested, Dr. Graham, when you hear about people in those kind of situations, like what's your first thought? If someone says, I keep doing these trainings and people just don't seem to get it. And do you run into that? And what do you usually do in that situation?
Yeah, that honestly, Ginger, that was the reason why I chose to do this work, is because whether it was through personal experience, that of colleagues, or even doing research, is I have found that so often, trainings are the thing to do, but you walk away with thinking sometimes that's an hour of my life I can't get back, right? Like it's not what you want as an attendee, and as someone who's putting it together, that's also not what you want. So oftentimes when I hear that, I immediately think there's a gap somewhere there, whether it is a gap in the data and the information, how it's presented, or there's a gap somewhere in the person's capacity, right? So the individual, do they have prior knowledge or not? In the facilitation, who was facilitating it or presenting the information, do they fully understand the needs of the learner as well as the content? And then with the data, I mean, I've done statistical analysis before. I don't like it, but I recognize it's a necessary part of our lives. And so sometimes it may be an issue with the analysis itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say with the kind of data tools that people are often building and then presenting, like if let's say you built a new report and you're sharing it in a meeting and then everybody walks away and they don't really seem excited about it, maybe in the way you thought they would be, or they don't take that back and keep using it, or they're not sure how to use it. Yeah, I think sometimes, I think you hit on something there that I think might be true also, is that sometimes our audience maybe even has sort of like a gut reaction to seeing data.
Yes. So I do want to share, just to give context, my background. So my bachelor's degree and my master's degree are in sports medicine. So I come from a healthcare background. I understand the importance of data informed, evidence-based decision making. I firmly believe in that. But what I have found in those instances is, if the individual has no prior knowledge, no prior experience with not only the subject matter that's being analyzed, but then the analysis, like the process of analysis and how to take both of those and apply it for themselves, that's when people walk away and they're like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, I'd like to use it, but I don't know how. And so again, there is that element of people not having capacity, and it's not their fault. It's just they don't know the skill set. Um,
Mhm.
but it's also frustrating for people who have developed documents or reports because blood, sweat, and tears putting to running the analysis, drafting the document, and having some level of excitement or anxiety with presenting it, and then to have it feel like it's fallen flat. And so there's lots of opportunities there to make improvement, and that's where I step in to say, okay, well, let's figure out what the gap is exactly, and now let's identify and customize the best solution to filling the gap.
What are some of the things you think folks don't always think about when they're thinking about adult learners? Because I know you really, I would love to know. Like,
Yeah, I first and foremost, people don't think about adult learners. Like,
that's
that's
fair.
that's just it. Like, they just don't think about them. They think I have this information that I'm going to present, and I'm going to serve it up and everyone's going to pick it up and use it. But there's no acknowledgement, or if so, there's very minimal acknowledgement of who the individual is. And then more importantly, what they bring to the table as a learner. And so, I'll share some well-founded and well-researched assumptions about all adults, that can be found in research. And one is that adults bring a wealth of life experiences to the learning table. So if someone comes from um, I'm getting hungry, so I'll just talk about food, right? So if someone comes from a vegan background, and for whatever reason they're at a presentation that's talking about barbecuing meat, like they have no capacity, like they have no frame of reference. So that then becomes the fact that they have a lack of experience becomes a barrier to their ability to learning. If you think about people who learn how to ride bikes, going from a street bike, which is the thin wheels, to a mountain bike, thicker wheels, I've got prior experience. And so it's an easy translation. So that's one thing, that people bring their life experiences to the learning table. Another thing, and I think this one in particular really, is an element for people in social work, is adults have continually evolving social roles. So, you may have someone who may be attending a workshop because they want to learn about a parenting skill. And well, I'll just use myself as an example. When I got married, I, was blessed to have grandchildren. And so here I am. I haven't had my own children, but now I have grandchildren. And so trying to figure out, like my role changed, my social role changed. For individuals who are taking care of an aging parent, particularly in this time, that's a changing social role. And let's not couple on the challenges of COVID that we're all working through. And so evolving social roles is, in fact, another major element of adults that you have to factor in their learning. And then the last one that I want to share with you, there are more, but for your audience, the last one is adults want to know the reasons why. They want to know why. So you can provide all the information in the world that you want, but if you're not explaining why this is important, why it's appropriate to apply whatever, it doesn't deepen the meaning for that adult, and it often won't be used.
Oh, I think all of those are so key. When you mentioned social role, it made me think about like we planned this training and I don't have kids in school, but it is spring break. And like, it made me think about how often like we plan, we might plan a live training at our agency as well. And like, maybe we plan it for lunchtime because we make the assumption that like, oh, everyone's around at lunchtime, but like maybe someone, goes in and checks on their adult, maybe another family member at lunchtime. And so that really doesn't work for them, or maybe their kids are home at that time, or maybe, trying to think of some other things, or just, maybe they're trying to buy a house. And so they're out looking at properties at lunchtime.
Yeah, it can be a host of things that we all, if we're sharing information, whether it's in a formal setting or an informal setting, or even a non-formal setting, we have to give consideration to who the individual is as a learner. What's going to get in the way of their ability to learn and apply, and what's going to help support them learn and apply.
Yeah. And I love the thing about the reasons why. I think, and the life experience thing. Oh, the other thing I was thinking about with that is I was wondering how often when folks look at data for the first time, I talked about kind of a gut reaction, but I think also like there's a little bit of like almost a stigma around data, because if you went to school to work with people and data is kind of numbers, and then people are telling you your job is to look at these numbers and what you really care about are people, it can really like you can have kind of a gut reaction of like, wait a second though, like I believe in caring about the people, and the greater you seem to only care about the numbers. And so like, I think that is so important when we're talking about, because we can get really focused in on numbers and forget that like each number represents a person. But if when we train about that, we're only talking about the numbers and not the people, like even just our language, like if we said this number of people were served versus like there were 300 services. Like, I think sometimes saying like 30 people got services is just it helps remind people that each number is a person versus
number. Yeah. In research, you're taught, now you don't refer to individuals as subjects. You refer to them as participants, because they have agreed to participate in your work, and they are, to your point, individuals, human beings. But I'm so happy you bring that up, Ginger, because the thing that I found, particularly in my work as a healthcare provider, and I don't do that, I don't practice anymore, but one of the things that I found was that so often clinicians, including myself, would say, okay, here's a research article that is using data, it's using the evidence to make a recommendation for best practice, but it's not applicable, right? Like, and so I think that's another element of when we think about data-driven work as it relates to people. Sometimes the way the information is presented, it's truly for such a small segment that is not the population that we are working with. And so it's hard for people to transfer that information so that they can make good clinical decisions. But I also say that then becomes the responsibility of the person who's creating the content.
Sure. Yeah, I think that is a really good point. Yeah, it makes me think about too, when you were talking about, I think something you've said, and now I'm not sure which of the things, but it made me think about how often we present data, like a lot of the agencies that are participating in this event today, and provide their staff with some kind of data that's a little bit something that someone could interact with, right? Like they could try, look at your program, or look at this provider, or compare that to this. But like I think sometimes when we do a training, we kind of show that, but maybe I wonder if sometimes when we do our trainings, it would help if we're really direct about like, this is how you could apply this to you. And let's look like maybe even have someone in the audience be like, could you be the guinea pig? And let's try going through like what you could look at in the data, and what's your next question, and what would you want to know about this? And like, because because yeah, I think sometimes it's so abstract, but like
Yeah.
maybe helping make it more practical, like here's how you could translate that to something you would want to make a decision about. I'm not sure.
Right.
I love this because I do trainings too, and I'm like, I don't always do that. I want to do that more.
Well, Ginger, I'm so proud of you because what you're talking about is adult learning, right? That is literally an approach that people should be taking in adult learning. It's a best practice. So it's yes, presenting the information, right? Presenting it in context, providing examples, explaining the why. But to take it a step further and ask the attendee, how do you think you can apply this information, right? Because it's one thing for the trainer or whoever it is to make assumptions about what someone needs in their work environment. But the reality is, unless we're walking in their shoes day to day to day, we don't know. And so it's more effective, or I should say most effective, to ask the participant, why don't you come up with an example and we'll walk it through. Just like you said at the end, who wants to be a guinea pig and let's test this out and see. And so it's providing, like, that's the extra step. So it's present the information, provide an example in context, and then if you really want to do it, ask individuals to put themselves in that situation.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think, especially if you're someone who works with data all the time, you can imagine how people might want to use it, but it's
Yeah.
really different to see how they use it. I've also observed, like, sometimes I watch someone use a report and I learn things about how they're going to do things that I'm like, oh, whoa, I didn't know that could be done. That's cool. I didn't know that.
Right.
I learn too when I watch someone else do their example of what they want. Yeah.
Right. And also the other part about data. So I have a colleague, a friend, Dr. Coleman, and he works in men's health. And so he's well steeped in data. And we'll have these conversations about data, and he'll tell me something about, a report that he's read, and I'll come back and I'll say, but what about this other part? And he's like, Carrie, that's not what the data was presented for. And I'm like, yeah, but it's still important information that I could use for something else. And so, what you're saying happens all the time, is there isn't just one way to use data, and there isn't one right way to use the data. It's just numbers. That's all it is it's just numbers, and it's a representative of something or
Mhm.
someone.
Yeah, we often talk about it being a model. It's just a model of reality. It's not reality. So there's always more you could look at in there.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
like that. I like that. It's just a model. Mhm.
yeah, yeah. Well, this is so great. I want to also just mention that if you're here today and you have a question for Dr. Graham, please don't be shy. You're welcome to post that in the chat, and we will keep an eye out for that too. So so Dr. Graham, I have some kind of specific examples I was going to ask you about
Okay.
too. If we'll keep an eye on the chat for questions too. But so
Yeah.
I know one thing that a lot of agencies are moving toward is having like pre-recorded video content where they train people in, like, here's the things you need to click on to fill out this form. Because a lot of agencies are training folks in how to fill out the data they need to collect, right?
Yep.
And so they'll have like a pre-recorded video that folks will watch. And that is definitely like more efficient for the trainer, right? And I've been that trainer where you do like hours and hours of training. And first of all, I used to do those kind of trainings where you do hours and hours of training, and at the end you're like, oh gosh, no one learned anything after the first half hour. And now I've just talked to myself hoarse, but like no one really got anything. And so then we replaced that at an agency where I worked, we replaced that with, I'll make a video of all those trainings. And then they'll just have to sit and watch the video, but I won't have to say all the things over and over again. So I mean, I know, I kind of in my head know, like, that's probably not ideal for someone who's trying to learn, but it is trying to find that balance. So are there things you've ever seen where people are doing pre-recorded training that like helps make that land more, or like helps make that better or more useful for an adult learner? What are some ideas for that?
Yeah, so there's a host of best practices, and particularly now that, for the last 2 years, people have had to move toward online recording, trainings, presentations, so on and so forth. And so there are some best practices. First and foremost, I want to go back. I didn't know, for your listeners, I didn't know you were going to ask that question. I didn't know.
No, I know. I'm sorry.
But no. I think it's great. And I say that because when I when I offered you all the 3 assumptions about adult learners, there's that social role, right? So one of the social roles you have to consider is that, okay, you've got working parents who are now homeschooling, but yet you're going to give them an hour-long recorded training to sit and watch. No, that makes no sense, right? It doesn't support them in their learning. All it is a presentation of information. So the alternative would be to break it up into very small, concise presentations of information, right? Does it really have to have a video element? Do you know what I mean? Like, could it be just an audio recording that they could listen to on the go? Right? That's, does it have to be an hour, or could it be 10 minutes? A series of 10-minute recordings. Okay, instead of filling out recording and demonstrating how to fill out this entire form, why don't we just do the first page? And then another recording for the second page, right? So, again, it's when you acknowledge the assumptions about adult learners, it should inform how you do whatever it is that you're going to do to train them or present information to them.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that's a great point. I mean, I think about, it's much easier to find a 10-minute window. And also the nice thing about that is then also you only have to watch the part that you're stuck on, right? Like if you need to go back and review that information, you can easily find like, I don't need to watch this whole hour-long thing. I just want to find the one thing where they talked about this one thing.
Right. And if you're attempting to watch an hour and you're trying to do, cook and homeschool and manage the dog and the cat, you're like, now what? I knew I heard it, but at what point in this hour, where was it? But to your point, like if it's just 10 minutes, you can find that pretty quickly and it's not an issue.
Right. Yeah. No, I love that. It makes me think about another thing we're trying to do with the videos for our community is we are using a tool that'll make a transcript that you can search in so that you can look through and find the part of the video that you want to, just FYI, anyone who's watched a video in our community, if you ever wanted to find a part of that video, you can search the transcript, which is kind of a nice feature.
It is. So I would say that those are all elements of best practices, right? The other thing is building knowledge, right? Helping build knowledge and build skills. And what I mean by that is you cannot, if you're going to do a training on data collection on a novice, right? Or someone who's just entering the field, and they have not had a wealth of experience in data collection, why would you start talking or presenting information that's very high level, right? Like you're already losing them. So another thing that I always encourage people to do is present basic foundational content. Make sure that individuals fully understand the foundations. And then in a separate learning experience, even if it means you take a 5-minute break and then move on to the next one, but give it some time, and then you go up the ladder of critical thinking and you offer them, okay, let's add on some more advanced skill set or some more advanced knowledge, or let's add on how do you analyze the information. Because when you're willing to present information that builds, that is going to do a couple things. One, it's going to engage the audience because you're speaking at a level in which they can understand. So they're going to be engaged. The next thing that it does by building is you are helping them retain the information, because if they know what's on the at the foundational level, they have to remember that to go up the pyramid. And then the last thing it does is it helps them appropriately apply whatever the information is. And that's, whenever I work with clients, that is at the foundation of my work. It's what do we need to do? Well, first, who are our learners? Who are our audience members as learners? What's the content? Use that to engage them. And now we're going to build information that helps them retain. And then we're also going to incorporate and have conversations so that they know how to apply it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I think, yeah, it makes me think about too, that pacing, which I think is maybe something you're sort of implying about adult learners, which is that like this idea that like, go, 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 go with what you're providing them can really, I'm a fast talker. And I know that sometimes people do better if I stop for a second and let people kind of absorb what they've heard and then kind of integrate that in. And so, giving people a break, giving people a minute to like process before you just jump right in. It seems like that would also help people feel like more comfortable, like reduce the amount of like sort of panicky discomfort people would have.
Yeah, it reduces the overwhelm. It totally reduces the overwhelm. So I think it's interesting that you offer you're a fast talker. I know that I'm a slow talker. I'm also a slow walker, but that's another story for another day. But one of the things that I've learned over the years, like over 25 years, is that when you can be comfortable with silence, you are really doing the other person such a service. Like it is really a kind gesture because it provides them time and space to literally process what it is that you are giving them. And if it's something that's high level, that is new information, they need the time. People just need the time to process. Now, thankfully, if they have a related life experience to that, their process time is a bit easier. But for people who don't, or you don't know if they have past experience, definitely giving them gaps in time is helpful. It's helpful. And it also, so I don't know if you've had this experience or if your audience has had this experience. You offer a training. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay, let's move on. Oh, wait a minute, right? Like, first, they need time to process. They need time to apply it and figure out if it makes sense in the way they're applying it. And if not, okay, then they need time to formulate a question, right? But so often people don't give them that time. And so silence is a good thing. It really is a good thing.
I wonder if that's gotten worse with our move to online, honestly, because we all feel really uncomfortable if there's a Zoom meeting and no one's talking. I think that in a room, you would say like, it reminds me, this is a silly thing, but it reminds me a little bit of like, almost like high school when like you would turn in your papers and there'd be a minute because the teacher would be like stapling them or, oh my gosh, I'm so old.
I remember, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So you would have a second to like, okay, that part of almost like that task is wrapping up and there's a minute before the next thing. Like, and when I think back, I'm like, I remember that feeling like, like, and then the next thing, and now that we're all on Zoom, there is some pressure, I think sometimes to be like, nope, no time, next thing right now, let's move on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that, one of the things that, truthfully, a practice in adult learning is the use of community or peer learning. And so I that was another reason why I was so honored to be invited, because you've provided a community platform for people to learn together. And you actually may not have the answer that they need, but someone else in the community does. And so that, providing adults with time and space to exchange ideas, to, you know, move the needle just a little bit by someone else, it helps them solve their own problems. And that's actually another assumption about adult learners is we engage in the learning experience because we're attempting to solve some problem.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether it's a problem with our work, a problem in our community, or a problem in our personal lives, it doesn't matter. We are attempting to solve a problem.
Yeah. No,
Mhm.
that's a good point. That makes me think about, whenever we're doing these kinds of sessions, I always encourage people to put something in the chat. And that is
Yeah,
partly like intentional because I'm sort of, and that has happened before where like someone in the chat asks a question and someone else in the chat answers the question. And I always feel like that's magic when that happens.
absolutely. Absolutely. I have, over the years at presentations, I've had people ask me a question. And although I've had an answer and that I was very confident in or a recommendation, I would not answer them. And I would say, is there anyone else here who can offer a suggestion or can answer the question? And I've done that time and time again. And I find it to be such a more meaningful, that people have a more meaningful experience, right? So the individual who's offering or sharing, like it's value for them. The person who is seeking an answer, they're getting an answer, but they're getting it from someone that they more than likely would identify as a peer. And there have been very few cases where I've had to go back, like after people have offered their suggestions and said, okay, I also want to give you this to consider, because the other individuals typically cover all the bases, or like you said, they'll provide an answer that I wouldn't, like. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm glad I didn't say anything. That's better than what I would have offered. But it's giving time and space for questions and opportunities to share ideas is huge.
I love that because it's something we could do in our trainings too, right? Like we could say, so and so was wondering if this worked. Like, does anyone want to, has anyone else tried that? Like, what is that? How has that worked out for you? Or, and just getting that engagement, which again, I think has gotten in some ways harder with being on Zoom than maybe it would have been in person, but there are ways to do it. So,
There are. And I want to bring it back to the data piece because that's why we're here. Um, you know, Sometimes it may be, well, like if I were in your audience, I would say, well, Ginger, how do I apply this? Right? It may be that, yes, as the presenter of the information, as the individual who's steeped in the data, you have a full understanding of all the ways, like the deep ways to apply it. But is it practical for that person's situation? But rather, if I talk to a peer who's doing very similar work in the field, to have them say, well, this is how I applied similar data, or, a previous iteration of the data.
mhm.
Why don't you try that? I think that's just more meaningful than, us presenting a list of numbers or a compilation of a synthesis of data.
Yeah. I mean, a very common thing people have is I definitely hear a lot is someone will make a data tool and then they're like, no one's using it. Like, no one's using this thing I made. And I was thinking about this just now because I was just in a meeting a minute ago with someone who showed me that like a lot of agencies use Microsoft Power BI and you can see in there who's run your report, who's tried it,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking like that would be cool is to look and see who is using it and then ask that person to like co-present with you about how they're using it. Wouldn't that be cool?
It
Because then
would be.
you could show like, I noticed you're using this report. Like, can you show other people what you're doing with it? Oh, that'd be so great.
It would be, and it's information, right? So if you can tell that it's people at management level who are using it, but people who are either in the field or entry level, they're not using it, even though it was presented to them. That's that's data. That's data to say, okay, there's a gap here. Why is this happening? We need to figure this out for sure. But I love that. I'm so happy you shared that, Ginger. And it's deflating, right? When you've created something and people aren't using it. The other, the other thing that I would encourage people to do is when you're creating tools, have someone else who is not well versed in the field look at the tool and see if they can understand or interpret what they're supposed to do or whatever the case may be, then yes, move forward. But if they can't understand it or make head or tails of it, even generally, I would encourage people to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, how can I be clearer? How can I shorten, make the language more concise?
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's so good, Dr. Graham. Thank you. Okay, there's a question in the chat. Look at that. Okay. Bruce is wondering, Dr. Graham, does gamification work with adult audiences? That I'm sure you've probably heard of gamification. It's definitely like, I guess, yeah. I'm curious what you think about that.
I have. I remember when gamification came on the scene. And I was asked to be a tester for, like, at the institution I was working at, where they were doing a lot of the research. But Bruce, that's a wonderful question. I would offer that it has its place. So if you're using gamification for, let's say, nutrition education, right? Or education about physical activity, absolutely, it makes sense. But if you're considering using gamification around topics and information content that's more sensitive, I would say, professionally speaking, it doesn't have a place, right? Like, we need to honor the content, honor the individuals who will be using it and what their perceptions may be. And so again, when we think about, sort of nutrition education, and one of the healthcare systems here in North Carolina uses gamification around like COVID practices, and as well as general wellness. It makes sense, right? And it even engages me in the process. But I personally sometimes struggle with, let's use gamification and sharing information. Sometimes I just don't think it works.
Do you think it's that sometimes for an adult learner, it's like they see through what you're trying to do and then they feel maybe a little, I don't know, I could see where I'm trying to think of an example of where it doesn't feel comfortable or it doesn't feel like the right fit. Can you think of an example, Dr. Graham?
I'm trying to think of one, and if Bruce has an idea, I'd love for him to share it. But I would say around any issues around politics, right? Like, the things that they tell you don't talk about at the dinner table, right? Like those sorts of things, or like crime, or, just, I think you have to really understand who your audience is, as well as what the content and context of it are, because whenever I hear people wanting to use gamification, I'm always like, oh my goodness, I don't think this is right.
It sounds like Bruce added in more to drive engagement to data using a carrot rather than a stick. So maybe more maybe something like, can everyone go run this report? And then there's a pizza party if everybody runs the report, or something. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like that for sure would work. Or let's test your knowledge on this software. Mm-hmm. And it's 3 questions that are kind of silly, but they still illustrate whatever the software use is. That absolutely. But I just would be I would really caution people about using it. And Bruce, your point is spot on. A carrot, use it as a carrot, not as a stick.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a really good point. Yeah. I have definitely, like even with wellness programs, sometimes I have seen that go sideways, right? Where like, I mean, there's the very famous episode of The Office where, they were doing like a weight loss thing and then people were passing out and, it wasn't good. Right. Like,
Right.
so just being thoughtful. Yeah. I could see where, but yeah, I do think people,
So here's an example. I
go
just
ahead.
thought of one. So on my phone, I knew that I needed to walk more. And so I have a pedometer app. And what it does is whenever I meet my goal, like it toots a horn. And when I pull up the app, like it shoots out confetti. And it's silly. I understand what they're doing. But every time I meet my goal, and I open the app for whatever reason, and I see that, it literally makes me smile. And I'm like, oh, I could go 5 more minutes. Like, it'll be okay. And so, yeah, you just have to understand, what is the impact that you're trying to have.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. It makes me think about like, just having people try. Maybe it's a good way when you're trying to have people try something, because it's like, if it kind of helps get over that hump of like anxiety around it, maybe a little bit. Yeah. I could see that being useful. Or also just people are really busy. So also, helping people see how it, I always talk about trying to find kind of a data champion within your team, right? Like someone who, and they kind of emerge when they've got access. You kind of see them come forward as you put stuff like that out there.
Yeah. But I would say, while you're reading the comment, I would say that when you're, there's just a lot of stigma, I think, around, and this was back to something you said earlier, where there's this dichotomous perspective of, we work with people, we work with data, right? Well, no, like there's an opportunity for the two to merge, and that's why we're here today. But it should not be a case of, that's Ginger, she's the data person, right? Like with an eye roll in there, right? Like, no, it should be, oh my goodness, that's Ginger. We need to get her over here in this conversation. And even though, we haven't moved forward on a project or whatever, let's at least see what she has to say about it. Like, what can she contribute? And so it's, and vice versa, instead of saying, oh, those are the people that talk to people, right? Like, yeah. So why don't you bring them in as you're developing a tool for analysis or data collection?
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're always trying to bridge that gap for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, there is another question here. Okay. So Jody says, curious of thoughts on having a trainer read a paragraph out loud while participants follow along in a manual with the same paragraph, but fill in the blanks with certain keywords that they hear while trainer is reading through the paragraph. That's a very specific question. Thanks, Jody. Can you see that question, Dr. Graham? Do you have?
I understand fully what the question is. fully. So I would say that practice is a practice taken from pedagogy. So it's taken from teaching children. Adults are not children. So a couple of things. One, I always tell people that, if there's something with, I try not to present a large body of text, but rather, if there is a quote or something, I'll tell them, I don't want to insult your intelligence by reading to you. Like, so I'm acknowledging that you have capacity to read and understand. I'm not going to do that. Like, I mean, if you just think about how you feel about, like, when people are reading a paragraph to you, it just makes me crazy. So that's one thing.
I think I just want to say, like, if someone's using that approach, like, that's not, we're not here to like judge that either, right?
No, we're
Like,
not. We're
like,
not.
would that fit into, what might be, what if you were, let's say you worked at an agency where that was how it's always been done, or that's something you've been trying. What are some ways that you might modify that to,
Yeah. So because, well, let me add to that. Absolutely. I am not attempting to shame anyone.
Oh yeah, no, I knew you weren't. I just wanted to see.
But it is, in fact, like, it's really taking from teaching children. And then when you leave a blank, right, like for a key word, again, that's really a practice as it relates to that. One of the things that you can do, again, this reference the paragraph, you can help, or you can offer a summary of the entire paragraph and say, if you're interested, here it is. Or if it's, a nice sized paragraph, highlight one or two sentences to draw their attention to, because ultimately the adult learner, they're attempting to solve a problem, and they want to know why. So their focus is on what information in this paragraph is the most important that I need. And then why do I need it? Or can someone explain it to me so that I'll understand how to apply it? So if really what you're attempting to do is help them understand or remember a singular word or phrase, I would give all my focus to that as opposed to the whole paragraph.
I think that's really helpful, Dr. Graham. And there's a comment that was helpful to know and speaks to their good. So yeah, that's super great.
Good. Let me offer a second recommendation. Sure. This is really quick. Again, going back to allowing people time and space, I'm going to give you all 1 minute to skim through this paragraph, and then let's take 5 minutes to discuss what it says or what it means to you.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, when you say that, I even feel this sense of like, yeah, that feels good. That feels good to me as like a person who can read a paragraph.
Right. But the other thing is, so growing up, I was not a good reader, and I hated reading aloud. And so for the person who's facilitating, when you offer the opportunity like that, it takes so much pressure off you. Right? To say, I'm going to give you guys a minute, or you all a minute to read or review. And then we're going to take more time to actually discuss.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that made me like want to like take a breath. Like, oh, yeah, that feels so good.
Like, I even felt better. Like, yeah, I remember. Like, it's just nice because then as the facilitator, you're just showing up for conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's easy. That's easy.
It also kind of honors the facilitators. You like the value of that person being there in person rather than just emailing a paragraph, right? Is for that discussion to take place. So it sort of honors everyone's time a little bit too, which I love. Because because that meme about like this could have been an email is real. Like some things could be an email. So yeah. Absolutely. Well, I know we are getting close to the end of the hour, and I do want to make sure we give people a chance if there are other questions hanging out there. So everyone, if you want to take a second to think about if you have other questions for Dr. Graham, I'm just going to look through my list of questions. I know we kind of talked about some topics I didn't even really tell Dr. Graham we were going to talk about. So thank you, Dr. Graham. Let's see. I know one thing that I thought if we have a few, thoughts on role plays. Oh, that's a great question. Well, there's
absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. I am a firm believer of role playing. And even if it's, let's just talk this out. What are all the scenarios in which something can happen? I'm a firm believer because it again honors the adult learner's experience, because they're able to insert elements from their past into this current role play scenario, and they're able to establish their own solutions to whatever the problem is. I love role playing, love it.
Great. No, that's super helpful.
Mhm.
Well, here's one that might be a fun way to end. How can you tell when you're providing a training, what are some of the things you look for to see if people are picking up on the training, or see if people are absorbing or applying the training? What are some of the things you would look for, Dr. Graham? Is that
Like,
that
literally.
Dr. Graham, are you there?
Right. Like literally, like the face just goes blank. I would just say that is the tell right there. If you can tell that people have either checked out, or if their brow furrows, like that means they're having a hard time processing the information. So there are some nonverbal cues, right? But then when it comes to verbal cues, ask, does this make sense? And then allow silence to be present. The other way to assess if people are understanding is to ask them a very specific question, right? So Ginger, what does it mean to use this container, right, in your world? And if Ginger cannot explain it, clearly I didn't do my job at, helping the audience understand.
The point about nonverbal cues makes me think so much about, so often when we can't see the audience, like if people are doing a Zoom presentation where you don't, like right now, right? Like the folks who are attending, I can't see your faces. So that is a way in which like Zoom trainings don't have that. So maybe that's another reason to really engage people, like in the chat or in other ways. Like I know some places do a thing where like everybody raise your hand to make sure you can use the controls, and everybody, so I think, and like, again, that, yeah, we've lost some of that one. I mean, not to say it's not other ways to do it, but it definitely comes up when we're.
Absolutely. And asking people to summarize, right? Like, okay, save, 10 minutes at the end. I'd like every person to just offer one thing that they can walk away with. And it doesn't matter what it is that they walk away with, but if they can at least come up with something, okay, at least they're gonna walk away with something. And you can, even in the world of Zoom, you can still do that, right? Like, yep, offer hey, can you all put in the chat one thing that you, in 5 words or less, that you're gonna walk away with from this?
Yeah, I love that. If we had enough time right now, I would do that, but we're kind of running out of time. But that's great. I'm definitely that's great. Dr. Graham, we are running out of time. This has been amazing. Thank you everyone for your questions. Thank you, Dr. Graham, for being here. Before we hop off, I just want to make sure that I mentioned that you can connect with Dr. Graham on LinkedIn. You can also, so I'm gonna, let's see, I can't copy the link. Maybe I can. Stand by. I'm gonna copy the link. We're gonna make this happen. I'm going to copy the link to Dr. Graham's, her business page here, her website.
Yes. Oh, you are so welcome. Someone said thank you. And so thank you. And you're so welcome.
Yeah, we're so grateful that you took some time to be with us today, Dr. Graham. This was great. We will get the recording out to everyone who registered, and also it will be in our community. If you're in our community, it'll be part of our ongoing library of things that people can benefit from. What was another thing I was going to say? Oh, and we usually try to do kind of a handout. So I may try to like summarize some of the points we made today as kind of a handout too. So we're trying to honor everyone's different learning styles, which we didn't even get into. We could have a whole nother conversation about that.
Oh, we really can.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a future one of these, Dr. Graham. So thank you so much for your time. And thanks everybody for being here. This was so great. I really appreciate everyone. So thank you so much.
It was an honor. Thank you, Ginger.
Okay, thank you all. We'll see you all at the next event. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.